The Blue Jewel.
Chapter 7. Part 2. And even though they hadn't exchanged a single blow, they were still studying each other. Agnoruk decided to initiate hostilities by striking a frontal greatsword that was well countered by the sword of Arras. Agnoruk recognized, after the clash of swords, the quality of Arras' defense, which had crouched to absorb the energy of his blow. Arras then counterattacked with a direct blow to Agnoruk's ribs, who dodged the attack by leaping backwards. But Arras expected that move, and with a nimble sweep of his feet he knocked the other half-orc to the ground, and the tip of the wooden sword touched Agnoruk's apple. Arras 1, Agnoruk 0, Gosberg said as Arras helped Agnoruk get back on his feet. Applause from all the mercenaries. Arras was their favorite, the leader and famous warrior, while Agnoruk was only known for his reputation for getting into trouble during the period of training in Almera and being the protégé of Gosberg, which caused him a lot of envy. Gosberg clapped his hands. Now he was accompanied by Kritus and Kush. Improved since the last time Arras and your Agnoruk wake up. Agnoruk wiped his trousers and picked up his sword, shot an angry look at Gosberg. It was clear that he was fighting away from home. Arian was glad of Arras' victory, although Agnoruk was also worried. The truth is that Arras was his favorite. All against Agnoruk, the half-orc concentrated again. Arras smiled. One more touch and the duel would be his. They began to spin around. For troll shit, and Agnoruk attacked with everything. Arras and the other mercenaries in the company were experienced warriors and hard to impress, but this time they were amazed. Agnoruk's attack wasn't like the first, now it was like a storm out of hell. Arras was completely dismasted, his sword could only hold off the blows of his opponent and he had to retreat as best he could. He had never seen anything like it. The rapidity of the thrusts was not out of this world. He didn't even notice when his sword flew out of his hands for the first time in years after a blow from Agnoruk, the edge of the other sword now touching the Arras nut. 1-on-1. Agnoruk said as he handed over the sword fell from Arras. While the spectators stood in silence in amazement. Arras shook his head. It was true. Arras never thought the rumors were true, especially in a ragged warrior who had been rescued from a death sentence. Son of a deserted white orc. Agnoruk had slain the king of the vampires. Those beings of darkness were very tough. Arras recalled that he once had to go to a fort on the eastern border of the empire for a vampire infestation and had to fight a newly infected young vampire. He had a hard time taking it down. Thanks to the Emperor's mags, they were able to get rid of these parasites. But if a young vampire who barely had power was already a formidable foe, Arras couldn't think of the extraordinary capabilities of the first of them, the king of vampires. Someone who had existed since the first age in Agnoruk was the one who defeated him, or so they said. There was still the last round, the final round, the one that would decide the winner. Arras knew he had to do his best. Agnoruk knew the same. As always, Agnoruk went on the attack. A new hell broke loose on the earth, but this time the old black general was prepared and managed to contain all the attacks of his rival with effort. But this time Arras maintained his defensive position. The mercenaries began to encourage the two contenders. Arras decided to go on the offensive and applied himself just as well as Agnoruk, who had to retreat a little to avoid being killed. The last round remained as after a long sword swing the two took distance. They were exhausted. Quit before you get hurt, Kush recommended, but the two duelists ignored him. The duel had to end with a victor. Agnoruk raised his head, watched Arian watching the fight on the terrace. It was a second, something stirred inside him and he didn't concentrate to the maximum, he got distracted. Arras was attentive. Agnoruk had let his guard down for a moment. Arras' attack was magnificent, Agnoruk retreating until he saw a weak spot in Arras' guard and kicked him with his right foot. It was a bad idea. That loss of concentration had been a key mistake. That weak point was a trap for Arras to do just that. Arras swept Agnoruk's support leg. He fell to the ground, and felt the tip of Arras' sword lightly touch his apple again. 2 Arras, 1 Agnoruk. Victoria Arras. Applause and more applause before a vibrant match. Arion clenched his fist as a sign of joy while Vanus kicked a stone. Arras helped Agnoruk to his feet and made the other half-orc raise his hand next to his immediately. They were surrounded by all their companions to congratulate them. Perhaps Agnoruk had lost the fight. From now on he would be treated as one of them. He would never lack the help or companionship of those mercenaries even if he left the company. And in time everyone who was a spectator of the duel would tell it to family and friends. That duel with wooden swords became a legend within the mercenary company.